Hello, and welcome back to Jacob's Guest Lounge, the history behind the mouse. Within every memory, there is magic. Last week, we talked with my sister about some of her favorite Disney picks. But in this solo episode, I want to share a little bit more about myself, who I am, where I come from, and the Disney movies that have shaped me into the man who I am today. By the end of this episode, I hope you'll feel inspired to think about the Disney films that have shaped your childhood too. So my name is Jacob Leisinger. I originally from Challis, Idaho, and now I am living in Boise, Idaho. Disney has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. At home, Disney movies were the most common films that I watched growing up. My mom once told me it was the most innocent and clean entertainment for my sister and I before we were 10 years old. Recording the first episode with Carol Ann was a lot of fun, and it did remind me of how special these early Disney memories are. So, for me, it's really hard for me to pick just one first Disney movie that I remember watching, because I've watched so many growing up, but I do remember one very clearly. So when I was 8 years old, my family took a trip to Salmon, Idaho to see Tarzan in theaters. Caroline and I were asking our mom where we were going, and she always said, "We're just going for a ride." But eventually we knew where we were going, and we enjoyed the trip. Now, watching Disney movies at home has often been with Carol Ann, but there were occasions when I'd watch it with my grandparents at their houses. For example, my dad's parents, at the time when I was there, I will remember watching The Lion King. And then I remember at my mom's parents' house, I watched Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. Now, as far as at the house was concerned and other family members, I remember when our cousin would babysit us one night and we watched Sleeping Beauty twice. So those experiences have inspired a lot of role playing. So for an example, Dad pretended to be Mufasa, Carol Ann pretended to be Simba, and I pretended to be Zazu. And it was one of the many examples of what made Disney stories come alive in our world. And speaking of one of the examples, I remember being in the bathtub and recreating the scene of the Little Mermaid in which Ursula makes a whirlpool. I did the same thing, not exactly like how she did it, but I was draining all the water in the tub and I loved watching that little whirlpool. I thought it was so cool as being a child as I was. Now, some of the earliest favorite Disney characters have stuck with me, and one of the examples is Dodger from Oliver and Company, because he was so clever and funny. I enjoyed Basil from The Great Mouse Detective, because he was incredibly smart and had very good detective skills. Archimedes from The Sword and the Stone made me laugh a lot. It wasn't just his sarcasm, by the way, but it was also just how he acted in general towards both Arthur and Merlin. For example, in the Arthur part, I really love how he's trying to teach Arthur how to do the alphabet. And I love that line where he says, D, E, F, and now the G. You see, it's a simple and... No, boy. Now use your head, will you? How do you ever expect to learn anything? To me, I just get a kick out of that. As you can tell. And then I love Baloo because of him being carefree and having a lot of joy coming out of him. And I admire that out of him. And all four of those characters are the type of people that I would love to have as friends in real life, as far as if I can find other people that exhibit those same characteristics. So, for movies that have shaped me are Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, Sword in the Stone, and The Jungle Book. For Beauty and the Beast, I love how the story has taught me that beauty comes from within and that we shouldn't judge people by appearances. But I also love how the movie itself is as old as I am, so I connect with it personally that way. Aladdin has showed me the importance of being honest and being true to yourself. And especially, I just also can't help but, speaking of being yourself, the part where Genie packs up to go on the trip around the world and both Aladdin and Genie express a tearful goodbye, with the Genie literally saying his last lines to him, "No matter what anyone else says, you'll always be a prince to me." And then you get The Lion King, where you get about life, responsibility, and finding joy even when things feel heavy. And you get none other than Timon and Pumbaa literally making it all feel better by when they remind him by saying, and quote, "It means no worries." Sword in the Stone reminds me about how the value of learning and education are very important, especially when Merlin tells Arthur that stick to your schooling. And then you eventually remember him pressing Arthur to learn about what's important, and that's the part where Arthur says, "Knowledge and wisdom are the true power." Then our Jungle Book is what teaches about taking life a bit slower, enjoying the journey, and not rushing towards everything. And that's the part where I can't help but reveal in the scene about where he sings, "And don't spend your time looking around for something you want that can't be found. When you go through life not thinking about it and go along not thinking about it, I'll tell you something true. The bare necessities of life will come to you." Yep, that's the fun part. Now, some quick fire favorites that I have to share. Our favorite hero is Hercules, because he's strong, and not just that, but he's also got great companions and the determination to prove himself. I also feel like I can connect with him on a personal level because we both know what it's like to deal with being different towards everybody else, and we have had our share of being ostracized and then favored by the public. So it goes both ways that way for me. And I also like Jafar as my favorite villain because he's just so sarcastic and cunning. He's always got a way of knowing how to make himself appear as what he wants others to think he is. And he's just got such a sly way of doing that. But plus, he's got such an incredibly hilarious sidekick, even though he's the antagonist. But how often do you ever come with antagonists who are going to come as being, incredibly hilarious at the same time? My favorite Disney song is Beauty and the Beast, being one of them. And I love Angela Lansbury's voice for singing it. She did really well. For being 66 years old at the time when she recorded it, she was very talented. And I still to this day get goosebumps when I hear the lines, "Both a little scared, neither one prepared, Beauty and the Beast." Yeah, I know I don't sing it nearly as great as she does, but then again, that's why I'm not a singer. A Whole New World is my other favorite because I love how they're flying all over the world and being able to just have such great singing voices accompanied by the wonderful sound of the music that's playing in the background. So all of the above is just pretty much my go-to song. And then my final song that I'm going to try to sing this, and feel free to grade me on this. I just can't wait to be king. Yeah, like I said, please feel free to grade me on that. I love to hear back from you all about that. But yeah, other than that, the song I like about it is the artist does a really good job singing it, and I love how Simba is feeling confident and being ready to lead the kingdom and just being upbeat about it. It's all just good and done. Other than happy scenes, now I have to discuss with you about some of the sad scenes. And when you think Disney and sad scenes, I guarantee you most of you are probably thinking The Fox and the Hound, where Todd has to be left at a game preserve by Widow Tweed. And then you also get The Lion King, which Mufasa dies. And I agree, those scenes are pretty sad, especially for me. I can't help but think of Lady and the Tramp, when they first go to the pound scene, before she ends up getting released. I just can't help but not look at that scene. Ugh. But anyway, I have 3 of them to share, and it's Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. The part about where Sassy nearly drowns in the river, that was pretty bad, but it wasn't nearly as horrible as Shadow falling into the mud pit. Because you get him wanting to leave and originally go on this journey, and then he goes into that mud pit trying to get out, and then somehow he loses his will. To me, I just can't help but think that is so depressing, especially when he says that line, "You learned everything you need, Chance. Now all you gotta do is learn how to say goodbye." In fact, I even remember crying at that as I was thinking about it. One time when I was a kid, I went on a road trip, and the thought crossed my mind of that scene, and yep, it just got to me. White Fang is my next pick because I am reminded of the scene where Jack has to let White Fang return to the wild, even though they've grown close. And it's just the bittersweet goodbye really stayed with me, and every time I see that scene, it just always gets me teary-eyed or something along that feature. And then Iron Will, in the part where Will's father drowns, that part always gets me either crying or just feeling like I'm trying hard not to, but it just comes out. Especially when Will grieves for his dad, and when one of his friends was telling him about how the river called his name, that part always gets to me too. I cannot help but think that way. But overall, these moments are not only just sad, but they have a way of being about teaching empathy, bravery, and doing the right thing, even when it could be hard. And it's just why Disney and family films have just stuck with me over the years. I created this podcast because I love connecting with people and sharing fun conversations, and I also wanted to give everyone a space to talk about their favorite Disney memories while also sharing my own. And Disney has just always inspired me, whether it's the stories, characters, and magic. And this podcast is about celebrating that joy and reliving the memories together. And the idea for the guest lounge comes from it being a place where not just guests that I have, but even myself, basically all of us can share the experiences and enjoy the conversation. Now, poll question for you all. Which Disney movie had the biggest impact on you growing up? And while you're all voting on that, tell me the specific movie that has shaped your childhood the most. Maybe something from the Renaissance like The Lion King, or something modern like Moana, or something else entirely. I'll be sure to check in on these responses in a future episode. And speaking of future episodes, I'm bringing in more guests, discussing Disney movies in depth, exploring Disney history, and even doing fun debates and rankings, like classic versus modern films or soundtracks. And like a rated G movie, like most Disney films are, Everyone is welcome in the lounge, and it is ready for fun for all ages. As I close in on this episode, I want to thank all of you listeners. It's always a pleasure to talk with you all. And the next episode on Tuesday, I will discuss the Disney pets that we wish we had. If you'd like to share your Disney story or possibly join me in the guest lounge for a future episode, there's a quick form in the episode description that you can all fill out. And I also want to share polling questions that I'm going to be posting at the end of this episode. Which Disney movie had the biggest impact on you growing up? Which Disney character do you relate to the most? What's the first Disney movie that you remember watching? And finally, which Disney movie taught you a lesson that you still carry today? Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate it. Think about which Disney movies have shaped you, and you feel free to share your story. Maybe you'll even get to join me in the guest lounge for a future episode. New episodes are every Tuesday, so make sure that you tune in next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, and follow and subscribe as well. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please give a 5-star rating, and I can't wait to share more stories and hear yours too. Until next time, keep the magic alive, and I'll see you back here in the lounge.